I thought she was the perfect mother, but she spent the children's money on her secret life online, while they went hungry at home. I took revenge on her. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so you don't miss news stories. I was 3,000 miles away in a rain-slicked London hotel room, staring at my phone screen while the rest of the city slept. My blood had never run colder. It was 2:14 a.m. back in Seattle. My phone had buzzed with a notification from a home security app one hadn't deleted, a smart lock system for my ex-wife's house. I kept the subscription active, just in case, a lingering habit from a marriage built on what I thought was protection. The notification read, "Front door, multiple failed access attempts." I opened the live feed. The grainy night vision image flickered to life, and my heart physically stopped. There was my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, standing on the porch in nothing but a thin nightgown and one mismatched sock. It was 38 degrees out. Beside her, my 10-year-old son, Leo, was frantically punching codes into the keypad, his small hands shaking so violently he kept hitting the wrong buttons. "Leo! Try again! My toes are numb!" I heard Lily's voice crack through the tiny, distorted speaker of my phone. "I'm trying! The code doesn't work. Mom changed it." Leo's voice was high-pitched, vibrating with a level of terror no 10-year-old should know. I watched them for 10 agonizing seconds before the most horrifying realization hit me. The house behind them was a tomb. No lights in the hallway. No flicker of a TV in the living room. No light in the master bedroom. And Julianne's white SUV was nowhere to be seen in the driveway. "Leo!" I shouted into my phone, using the two-way talk feature. "Leo, can you hear me?" The boy jumped, looking around wildly until his eyes landed on the small camera lens above the door. "Dad? Dad, we're locked out. Mom said she'd be right back, but it's been hours." "Listen to me," I said, my voice thick with a mix of adrenaline and pure rage. "Go to the neighbor. Go to Sarah's house right now. Don't stop, just run." "She's not home, Dad," Leo sobbed. "Her lights are out. Everyone's lights are out." I was on the other side of the Atlantic, and my children were abandoned on a freezing porch in the dead of night. I didn't know then that this one notification was about to peel back a curtain on a year of systematic cruelty, and a betrayal that would redefine everything I knew about the woman I once loved. To understand how we got to that porch, you have to understand my ex-wife, Julianne. Julianne, 36, and I, 37, had been divorced for exactly 1 year. For a long time, I thought we were the success story of a bad situation. We didn't have a blowout fight, we had a slow, agonizing erosion. I'm a structural engineer. I build things to last, I look for stress points, I value stability. Julianne was different. In the last 3 years of our marriage, she had become obsessed with the aesthetic. She started a lifestyle blog that never quite took off, but she lived as if it had millions of followers. Every family dinner became a 30-minute photo shoot while the food got cold. Every vacation was curated for the perfect, candid shot. I felt like a prop in her life, and eventually I told her so. She looked at me as if I were a broken piece of furniture. "You're just boring, Mark," she'd said. "You have no vision." When I filed for divorce, I wanted to be the bigger person. I made $210,000 a year. She made almost nothing from her consulting. I didn't fight the alimony. I didn't fight the child support. I wanted my kids, Leo and Lily, to stay in the house they knew. I moved into a modest apartment and sent Julianne $7,500 every single month. "I just want them to have the best, Mark," she had whispered during our final mediation, dabbing a tear from her eye with a silk handkerchief. "The best organic food, the best tutors, the best life." I believed her. I worked 60-hour weeks to fund that best life. When I picked the kids up from my half of the month, they seemed okay, if a little quiet. Julianne told me they were evolving into a more disciplined, minimalist lifestyle. I thought it was just her latest influencer trend. I didn't realize she was starving them of more than just attention. Back in the London hotel, I was losing my mind. I called the local police in Seattle. I stayed on the line with the dispatcher, watching the camera feed like a hawk. Please, I told the officer. They're 7 and 10. They've been out there for 40 minutes. I watched through the camera as a patrol car finally pulled into the driveway. 2 officers stepped out. They wrapped my children in thick wool blankets and sat them in the back of the heated cruiser. 1 officer stayed behind, knocking on the door, then eventually using a heavy-duty flashlight to peer through the windows. Sir, the officer said over the phone after I gave him my details. The house is empty. There is no food on the counters, no signs of a struggle. It looks like she just left. Find her, I growled. I'm getting the first flight out. The flight home was a 14-hour descent into hell. I paced the aisles of the plane until a flight attendant told me to sit down. My mind was a storm of calculations. $7,500 a month. That's $90,000 a year, tax-free for her. The mortgage was $3,200. Where was the rest? Why were my kids wearing thin nightgowns in winter? Why didn't Leo have a working key? When I landed, I didn't go home. I went to the police station. Julianne was already there, sitting in an interview room. She wasn't crying. She looked annoyed. She was wearing a $1,200 designer trench coat and holding a Starbucks cup. When she saw me, she didn't apologize. She didn't ask if the kids were traumatized. You really had to go nuclear, didn't you, Mark? She snapped. I was 3 hours away. I had a flat tire. Leo knows how to handle himself. 3 hours away? I shouted, leaning over the table. The police found you at a casino resort in Oregon, Julianne. You were at a craps table with a 24-year-old boy while our children were freezing on a porch. I needed a weekend, she shrieked. Do you know how exhausting it is to play perfect mom for your boring kids? I deserve a life too. That was the moment the Julianne I knew died. The woman standing in front of me was a stranger wearing my ex-wife's skin. The court granted me emergency custody that morning. I took Leo and Lily back to my apartment. They were strangely silent, huddling together on my sofa like refugees. I went to the kitchen and started making them what I thought was a treat: pancakes, eggs, bacon. The smell of the bacon hit the air, and Lily started to cry. Not a normal cry, but a soft, terrified whimper. What's wrong, honey? I knelt beside her. Mommy says the smelly meat makes us slow, she whispered. She says we aren't allowed to want it because it costs too much spirit money. I looked at Leo. What is spirit money, Leo? The 10-year-old looked at the floor. It's what she calls the money you send. She says that if we eat meat or buy toys, the spirit money runs out and we'll have to live in a tent. We've been eating the gray porridge for a month, Dad. I felt a cold shiver go down my spine. I left the kids with my mother and drove over to the house I was still paying for. I walked through the door and was hit by a scent of expensive perfume and nothing else. I went to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. It was haunting. There was a bottle of expensive champagne, several jars of high-end skin cream, and in the bottom drawer, a single, wilted head of cabbage and a large container of generic, industrial-sized oats. No milk. No eggs. No bread. I went to the trash can. I tipped it over. Out rolled empty boxes from Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Sephora. Underneath those were the receipts for Jax's portfolio. I realized then who Jax was. He wasn't just a boyfriend, he was her project. He was a 24-year-old aspiring fitness model. Julianne wasn't just dating him, she was funding him. She was buying his supplements, paying for his professional photo shoots, and taking him on brand building trips to resorts, all with the money meant to keep my children fed and warm. I hired a private investigator named Elias and a forensic accountant. I told them I wanted every penny tracked. 3 days later, Elias called me into his office. He looked grim. He laid out a series of photographs on his desk. Your ex-wife has been living a double life, Mark, Elias said. She has a second Instagram account under the name at the Gilded Jewels. It's private, but I got in. Look at the dates. I looked. While I was in London, she was posting photos of herself in a bikini at a heated pool in Bend, Oregon. The caption read, "Escaping the chaos to find my inner light." Luxury isn't a choice, it's a vibration. The chaos she was referring to was her own children. Then came the accountant's report. It was a roadmap of clinical sociopathy. Child support payment, October 1st, $7,500 deposited. October 2nd, $2,400 spent at a boutique jewelry store. October 3rd, $1,500 loan to Jax Miller. October 5th, $800 on a spiritual retreat deposit. By the 10th of every month, 80% of the money was gone. She was forcing the kids to eat oats and water for the remaining 20 days of the month so she could maintain the illusion of wealth for her boyfriend and her followers. But the worst discovery was in the kids' bedrooms. I went back to the house to pack their things. I found Lily's diary under her mattress. The entry from 2 weeks prior read, "Mommy got mad today because I asked for a new pair of shoes. Mine have a hole and my socks get wet in the rain. She said I was being materialistic, and that I should be grateful for the air in my lungs. She bought Jax a new watch instead. I hate the watch. It ticks too loud." I sat on the floor of that pink-painted bedroom and wept. I hadn't just been a boring husband, I had been a blind one. When we went to court for the permanent custody hearing, Julianne showed up with a court-appointed lawyer, looking like a martyr. She wore a simple black dress and no makeup, trying to play the part of the struggling, abandoned mother. "Your Honor," her lawyer argued, "my client is a victim of financial control. Mark earns significantly more, and she was simply trying to find a way to build a career in a difficult economy. The incident at the door was a one-time lapse in judgment caused by a car malfunction." I stood up. My lawyer, a shark named Marcus, didn't just speak, he performed an autopsy on her character. "A one-time lapse?" Marcus asked, his voice echoing. "Let's look at the car malfunction records." He pulled up the GPS data from Julianne's SUV. It showed that on the night the kids were locked out, she was at a casino. There was no record of a tow truck. No record of a call to AAA. Then, Marcus played the audio from the security camera. The sound of Lily crying about her numb toes filled the courtroom. I looked at the judge, a stern woman in her 60s. I saw her jaw tighten. But the final blow was the Jax factor. Marcus called Jax Miller to the stand. The boy looked terrified. He had realized that being a fitness influencer wasn't worth a felony conviction for being an accessory to child neglect. "Did Julianne tell you where the money for your photo shoots came from?" Marcus asked. She said she had an inheritance," Jack stammered, refusing to look at Julianne. "She said the kids were with their dad most of the time. I didn't know they were home alone. She told me they were at a wellness camp. Julianne stood up and screamed, "You coward! I made you!" She was tackled back into her seat by the bailiff. The mask hadn't just slipped, it had shattered. The judge's ruling was swifter than I expected. Julianne was stripped of all custody. The judge went a step further, citing prolonged psychological abuse and physical neglect. Her visitation was restricted to 2 hours a week, supervised by a social worker, in a windowless state building. The alimony? Terminated. The child support? Not only was it stopped, but the judge ordered a judgment of restitution. Julianne was ordered to pay back $45,000 of the money she had misappropriated from the children's needs. Since she had no job and no assets, having spent everything on her brand, the court ordered the sale of the house. The equity, which was about $120,000, was placed into a locked trust fund for Leo and Lily's college education. Julianne walked out of the courtroom with nothing but the clothes on her back and a looming criminal trial for child endangerment. As she passed me in the hallway, she hissed, "You think you won? You've just turned them against me." They'll hate you for this one day. They don't hate me, Julianne, I said quietly. They just finally know what it feels like to be warm at night. It has been 18 months since that night in London. The transition wasn't easy. For the first few months, Leo would hide food in his room. I'd find granola bars and bags of crackers tucked under his pillow. It took 6 months of therapy for him to believe that the spirit money wouldn't run out. Lily still has nightmares about the cold. Sometimes, on winter nights, she'll wake up and come into my room, asking if I can check the front door to make sure it's locked from the inside. But we are healing. I sold my apartment and bought a house with a big backyard. No smart locks, just a standard key and a sense of security that doesn't rely on an app. My mother moved in to help with the kids, and the house is always full of the smell of smelly meat and actual, real food. Julianne? She vanished from social media. The Gilded Jewels account was deleted. Last I heard, she was living in a different state, working at a diner, still trying to find a rich benefactor to fund her next big idea. She hasn't called the kids in 4 months. Yesterday, I was out in the yard with Leo, teaching him how to build a birdhouse. He was measuring the wood with a level of precision that reminded me of myself. "Dad?" he asked, squinting against the sun. "Yeah, buddy? Thanks for answering the phone that night. In London." I put my hand on his shoulder. "I'll always answer, Leo. No matter where I am in the world." He nodded, satisfied, and went back to his work. I looked up at the sky and realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't looking for stress points. The structure was finally sound. The price of our secret life had been high, but the value of the truth? That was something you couldn't put a price tag on. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so you don't miss out on new interesting stories.